Hello, everybody. Sorry. Yeah, I was recording this, and my wife called in using the phone instead of Messenger, and I couldn't pause it. So yeah, now I got to redo this whole damn thing again. All right. Welcome to the Carl Experience, Season 2, Episode 26. This episode was suggested by Laura Witham. She wanted to know the connection between Louis Farrakhan and the Black Lives Matter movement dealing with anti-Semitism, because it seems like they're being hijacked. Thank you, Laura Witham, for that for the suggestion. I understand you wanted to see that done right away, so yeah, I spent the better part of my weekend just doing research on this. So here we go. We're going to delve right into it. We're going to get some history and then some other stuff. Black Lives Matter, hijacked by anti-Semitism. Extreme anti-racists see Israel as the world's single biggest problem, by Zoe Strimfeld, June 24, 2020. By way of Australian Financial Review. How is this possible, you ask? Easy. Anti-Semitism. Anti-racism movements often foster anti-Semitism, which is true. Historically speaking, it is very true. It is damn true, to borrow a wrestling moniker from the inimitable Kurt Angle. According to the same article, Ice Cube, yes, the infamous rapper, and everybody starts to chime in as I'm doing the damn podcast. The infamous rapper chose to advance the cause of George Floyd by posting a caricature of Jewish figures with the caption, "All we have to do is stand up against them, and the little game is over." He also praised Nation of Islam founder Louis Farrakhan, one of the world's most rabid anti-Semites. Another Jewish perspective on Black Lives Matter. It must be noted that not long ago, the chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel shamelessly labeled the black people as monkeys. This was condemned by the larger Jewish community. As an article written by Rabbi Ben Kamen of the San Diego Jewish World, June 16th, 2020. So these are recent articles. I found articles from 5, 10, and even 15 years ago. Some were even 20 years ago or more, about Louis Farrakhan and his rabid anti-Semitism. Now, let's go over some very simple facts, okay? First, we're going to cover Black Lives Matter, that whole thing. BLM, or Black Lives Matter, is an organized movement in the U.S. advocating for non-violent civil disobedience and protest against incidents of police brutality against African American people. So the BLM is for non-violent civil disobedience, meaning them tearing shit down or throwing rocks at cops. That's not Black Lives Matter. Now, Black Lives Matter was founded by Alicia Garza, born Schwartz. She's a queer and racial activist. When I did some research a year ago, and it stated some stuff. But let me quickly summarize the other two founders. Then we have Patrisse Cullors, Cullors. Don't ask me why it's done that way. But Patrisse is a queer and religious activist, and as far as I know, these are both queer activists, and as far as I'm led to believe, they're both queer themselves. They are in relationships with either trans or nonconformist gender relationships. Not that I care that they're queer. It doesn't matter that they're queer. I just think it's odd that Black Lives Matter is being backed by two people who are queer and who are, up until a year ago, were transgender to some extent. Then there's Opal Tometi. She is a racial and immigration activist, And they formed Black Lives Matters 6 years ago to this day. July 13th, 2013 is when they formed Black Lives Matter. That's why I'm doing it today. It was a brilliant theme. I was thinking about recording this yesterday, but now I'm like, no, we got to do this today on the anniversary. But I did think it was weird that Opal Tometi is the only one of the three who's not a gender bender or transgender or anything. And yes, I had done background research on Garza and Colors, and as far as they were reported a year ago, they were both queer transgenders, which doesn't make hide nor hair. I don't care about it, but I think it's very odd that you have two gender nonconformists complaining about Black Lives Matter, and you'd think they would be more concerned about like trans lives matter. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that field, but that's a little information on Black Lives Matter. Their 6th year anniversary is today. Next up, Louis Farrakhan, born Louis Eugene Walcott. Is it me, or does that sound like a stupid name? Hey, Louis Eugene Walcott. I'd change my name too. That sounds like some weird medical pedophile or something. Okay, he's an 87-year-old religious leader and political activist. He is the leader of the Nation of Islam, or the NOI, which is identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, as a hate group promoting black nationalism. So when you see that brown fist, when you see that brown or colored right hand up in the air, black supremacist, black nationalist movement. He has all but admitted to having a hand in the death of Malcolm X. Yes, I read the entire excerpt from his interview about the death of Malcolm X. He pretty much does everything but outright come out and say, yes, I either had him killed or I killed him myself. It was a really long read. I spent over 7 hours Saturday or Sunday looking all this information up and making notes. As leader of the NOI, Nation of Islam, he preaches the theology which claims black superiority to whites. According to the NOI, whites were created 6,600 years ago as a race of devils by an evil scientist named Jacob. I am not making. I could tell science fiction stories that aren't as radical as this. This is a story originated from the founder of the NOI, Wallace D. Fard, not Ford, Fard, F-A-R-D. Yeah, well, apparently he later changed his name to Mohammed. Don't ask me why. If this sounds familiar to you, you may recall Ron L. Hubbard's quasi-religious Church of Scientology, with a similar fantastical science fiction origin of indoctrination. With claims of historical knowledge from 66 trillion years ago for the Nation of Islam, 66 trillion years ago, and 75 million years ago for Ron L. Hubbard's Scientology, it's hard to see why certain people cling. It's not hard to see why certain people cling to everything or indeed anything. Yes, I know I have to drink more water. To reinforce his radicalist views, he has been recorded in an event in Milwaukee in August 2015 as saying, white people deserve to die, and they know. So they think it's us coming to do it. And there are several people who have stood up for Black Lives Matter, for the BLM movement, who in fact encourage you to listen to Farrakhan. They openly criticize Jews and all this, and when you invite non-racism in a certain context, people will seep in who are anti-Semites. Am I against racism? Well, y'all, anybody who knows me knows I'm against racism pretty much on everything. But again, I'm also the kind of person I just hate indiscriminately anyway. I don't care what race you are. It depends on how intelligent you are. If you're dumber than a tree stump, okay, well then you need to get your shit together. Unless you're naturally stupid, in which case, I'll entertain you for a while and then just leave. Now, mind you, I have a brother who's mentally disabled. Oh, sorry, gotta get my water. Don't want to cough too damn much. Now, he has been recorded as calling Semites or Jews a trash religion, a garbage religion. I read up on a couple of his speeches, and he is lividly anti-Jew. This coming from a guy who pushes the story of this race that lived 66 trillion years ago, and whites were invented by a scientist named Jacob 6,500 years ago. He openly endorses this. We're talking about an 87-year-old guy who endorses a chronological experiencing from 66 trillion years ago. Who the hell was alive 66 trillion years ago? Even according to science, by this closest stretch of the imagination, 66 trillion years ago is older than the goddamn universe. The Big Bang didn't happen back then as far as science goes. And I'm not talking religious science, I'm talking science, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Albert Einstein, and Carl Sagan science. I mean, 75 million years ago, yeah, I'm not believing that some advanced civilization would have been here, because at 75 million years ago, there'd be no evidence of an advanced civilization. It would have eroded. Like the crystal, we're lucky to find some of the minerals from what would be the Earth forming because of asteroid impacts accumulating and making the Earth. Now, he has gone on to say a lot of this stuff, and there are people who praise Farrakhan and say that the BLM movement needs to incorporate more of that. You want to be against systemic racism, but you're promoting racism. Let that sink in for a second. Your brain's probably going, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense. How can you be anti-racist? How can you do anti-racist stuff while promoting racism? And most of the African American leaders who are advocating Black Lives Movement, advocating for Louis Farrakhan, are African American. So we went from Black Lives Matter going up against white supremacy. So it's basically, and you'll excuse me if I boil this down with my own lens of view, but trying to eradicate white racism or white supremacy with black supremacy cancel each other out. I could be wrong. I'm willing to admit that I am wrong, but I don't think I am. And I'll tell you why, in a very succinct manner. Black Lives Matter is a movement that was started by 3 black people, and they're advocates in their own respective area, racial activism and sexual, racial, and immigration activism. And I will point out that all of them are younger than me. All of them were born in 1981, all up to 1985 or something. You can look it up. I mean, you guys certainly aren't that dumb, but. And I'm not discrediting Black Lives Matter. what I'm trying to get out is, if Black Lives Matter is built on the stepping stones that the Nation of Islam and Louis Farrakhan built, then Black Lives Matter is a paper house built on the sand. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means that house of cards is imminently going to fall down. Now, and I'm not talking like one or two polarizing figures. Men and women on both sides of the fence have both praised Louis Farrakhan's work and think that BLM should focus more on the NOI's message and be inclusive. And what's sadder is Black Lives Matter has the backing of Louis Farrakhan and his followers. So a guy who's rabidly anti-Semite is backing the Black Lives Matter movement, which is anti-Jew. I don't know about you, Lucy, but that smells like fish. Okay. Now, I want to talk to you for a moment about Wallace D. Ford. Like, I'm not kidding. Let me pull up some information on him real fast. Gotta wait on my laptop. But yeah, Wallace D. Fard, excuse me. I'm messing his name up like a bad plate of ragu. But Wallace D. Fard, or later I think it was Wallace D. Muhammad. Hold on, let me put this in here. And of course, everything else here keeps popping the hell up. Sorry about the delay. I'm just trying to look this up so I can give you a better segue here, or a better explanation. Wallace D. Fard, also known as Wallace Fard Muhammad. Give me a few seconds, I'm pulling this up. Wallace D. Fard, known as Wallace Fard Muhammad, reportedly born on February 26, 1877, was the founder of the Nation of Islam. He arrived in Detroit in 1930 with an obscure background and several aliases, and taught in an idiosyncratic form of Islam to members of the city's black population, no doubt the uneducated type. Let's see if I can get this on camera here real fast. Let's see. So I dropped the phone. But yeah. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll down and go to his... Okay. He was born reportedly February 26, 1877, or abouts there. It's unknown relatively. Death, he disappeared in 1934, age 56 to 57. As a side note, birth dates attributed to Fard include 1877, 1893, 1891, and 1893. The Nation of Islam celebrates February 26, 1877. That guy does not look black at all, and that's probably not a surprise to any of you. Now here's the interesting part. A declassified FBI memorandum dated May 16th, 1957, from a review of the instant file, it does not appear that there has been a concerted effort to locate and fully identify W.D. Fard, inasmuch as Elijah Muhammad recognizes W.D. Fard as being Allah, or God, and claims that Fard is the source of all his teaching. It is suggested that an exhaustive effort be made and need to look at the various aliases, including the name Ford. The search produced two Fords of interest, one of whom was Wallace Ford. Wallace Ford, a prominent movie actor. The other was Wally D. Ford of California, arrested by Los Angeles police on November 17, 1918, on a charge of assault with a deadly weapon, and again in 1926 for a violation of the California Wool Wine Possession Act, and on again, not even a month later in 1926, for a violation of the State Poison Act, for which he was sentenced 6 months in the San Quentin State Prison in 1926, June 12th. According to San Quentin records, Wally D. Ford was born in Portland, Oregon on February 25th, 1891, the white son of Zered and Beatrice Ford, who were both born in Hawaii. Let's see. Read the second part here. In October 17th, 1957, the FBI located and interviewed Hazel Barton Ford, Wally Ford's common-law wife, with whom he had a son, Wallace Dodd Ford, born September 1st, 1920. Barton Ford gave a description of Wally Ford, described him as a Caucasian New Zealander. The FBI's search for Fard was officially closed 1 year later on April 15, 1958. Immigration records did not match any of his aliases. His true identity remains unknown. But there is strong evidence to suggest that the Nation of Islam founder, Wallace D. Fard, was the same man as Wallace Dodd Ford, a criminal in San Quentin's prison. According to Patrick D. Bowen, Ph.D. candidate at the University of Denver's Iliff School of Theology, I'm guessing the name, fingerprints and photographs taken from San Quentin prison match those involved with Fard during the 1930s in Detroit. And in '59, the FBI sent a story to the Chicago New Crusader newspaper stating that Fard was a Turkish-born Nazi who worked for Hitler in World War II. Give me a second here. But that doesn't exactly pan completely out as far as World War II, unless he disappeared and decided to do something else. So we're talking about a guy who did the same thing that Ron L. Hubbard did. Made some fantastical story up and used a lot of other aliases, and basically made up his own religion based on whatever the hell it was. Now, I would like to, however, point out the fact that Jay-Z, Jay Electrica, Bren Nubian, and Ras Cass all reference Wallace D. Fard in their music, be it his Fard or Fard Muhammad name. And I just think it's weird that we've got Farrakhan still spilling vitriol about the Jewish people, being a rabid anti-Semite himself, and following in the steps of Wallace Fard. And the fact that you have these college-educated people, ironically enough, I've noticed that a lot of these African American people that are proponents for Farrakhan are women. As far as Fard goes, he seems to have more the male majority, but Farrakhan has the female majority, it seems to be, because in all the reading I did, this prominent black female said this, and then praised Farrakhan. You know, the list goes on and on of all these women who praise Farrakhan. Okay, well, what do you? Black Lives Matter is clearly defined, and I got several things done, and on the Black Lives Matter movement page as of yesterday, they actually had bits stating that they will do what they need to do, and that they are okay, that they are backed by Louis Farrakhan, and they endorse Louis Farrakhan themselves. But as far as a lot of other places go, Wikipedia amongst the bigger ones, it's supposed to be an organized movement for nonviolent civil disobedience, protesting. Okay, if you're going to talk about racial equality and fight for racial equality and racial justice, why would you join up with a guy who's literally anything but that? He only cares about the advancement of the black race, if you want to even call it that, the black ethnicity. Because how I was raised, we're all the human race. We're all different ethnicities. Race became a thing because race ended up popping up because my mom's family, they're Southern, so. But yeah, I wanted to shed some light on this weird bubble after Laura suggested it to me. So thank you, Laura, again. Laura Witham suggested that I look into it and make a podcast about it, and now I'm doing it, and I'm generally shocked. Like, why are a bunch of young people starting to listen to a racist old black guy who should have just gone, he should have been just a violinist. He should have just jumped on the bandwagon he was supposed to and be a violinist, because he was a prodigy as a child and a teenager. And he was radicalized. I think that's the problem with our youth today is you can be college educated. So you have a brain. The problem is using it properly. If you get radicalized by this crap, then I honestly think you're a guinea pig, and well, they've got a college education, and I could go to college and be one of the worst students there and still graduate without having to use my brain. It's not hard to do. You just have to be doggedly determined to pass. But I see, I'm for the most part now seeing people see what they want to see when they want to see it. I was having an argument last night with somebody about this COVID nonsense. I'm not saying COVID isn't real. I'm acknowledging that COVID is a real virus, and it is causing some damage. It's causing some uncomfortableness. It's doing all that. This person I was arguing with, when she was talking about this person, all these people being in pain and blah 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 blah, endless cycle of drivel. I've argued with people like her before. I have, and I've done a terrific job of representing my own of representing the facts as they are, not as how they want, as the media wants us to see them. And when I pointed out the fact that it's not the rate of infection you should be worried about, it's the death rate. If this were really that dangerous, the homeless would be dead, the essential workers would be dead, there would be countless children dead, there would be countless adults dead. But you sure as hell wouldn't have, the homeless would not live. They'd get it, dead, all of them. They'd run into each other in a 2-week period and all of them be dead. So as virulent and spreadable as this stuff is, it's pretty much just like the flu, only a little deadlier. It's telling when it's telling because when I pointed out the fact that the death count should be what matters, This young lady automatically discounts what I said and said, no, the death toll doesn't matter. What matters is people getting sick. Okay, so you're discounting pneumonia, colds, flus, respiratory infections, not COVID, respiratory infections, which is different. You're discounting all that. So that makes you a cancel culturist. Cancer culture, all that. Because you just want to acknowledge that people are getting sick, not what they're dying of. And what they're dying of is more important in a pandemic. And she said that the death rate doesn't matter. That shows me how intelligent you are. I pay attention to the death rate. You can have people getting infected left and right from a common cold or flu. Flu's very easy to spread too. But the homeless aren't dying from that. I mean, on average, we have 30 to 60,000 deaths every year from the flu. This year, guess how many people died of the flu? You guessed it, nobody. Everybody's dying from COVID. Yet our numbers don't reflect that. Because our hospitals are trying to get more federal funding by claiming that a patient died of COVID. If they do, they get better funding, and so the more patients you have that die of COVID in your area, the better federal funding you get. Just like here in Wichita, we don't have a buttload of cases. Our cases of confirmed cases go up, but so is our testing. Our testing has gone through the roof. So obviously, there's going to be some correlation between that. That means more people are carrying it around without knowing it and not suffering from it. And over the weekend, which was from Friday evening to, let's even categorize it like this. From Friday at 4 p.m. to today, at whatever time they redid the stats, that whole weekend, 2 people died in the state of Kansas. Of 2.9 million people, 2 died. Our cases went up probably 30,000. But our death rate went up by 2. Just think what you want of that. I'm just pointing that out. And as far as Black Lives Matter movement goes, they're wanting to point out that all lives. They want to point out that you're not doing this, you're not doing that. What I love is do this new mask shit. Because I have hearing issues. I have had hearing issues since I was 5 or 6 years old. Even had a surgery on this ear. My ear bones, is a stainless steel wire. A very small one, apparently. But I have issues hearing. If you stand on my left side and talk to me normally, I will appear to not be paying attention because I can't hear you. Stand on this side, hear you almost instantly. And when I go to my eye appointment here in a bit, today, I'll have to take my mask with me just in case they don't let me get away with that exemption, because if you're hard of hearing, you're supposed to be able to. You're supposed to be exempt from that. And it's for my eyes. If it wasn't for my eyes, if it was just for my teeth, yeah, fuck it, I'm not going. It's for my eyes, and they did say there was a problem. They said there was a thinning of my optic nerve, so I need to get that checked out. Whether I have to wear a mask or not, I still have to get it checked out. Because let's face it, if I don't have eyes, I can't do YouTube. Or at least not this way, because I don't know where the camera would be. I know that was insensitive, but I can get away with certain things. But yeah, this. When somebody who's black tells me, you don't know what it's like to be black. You don't know what it's like to be deaf. And I had this conversation with somebody a couple days ago where they were like, well, you're supposed to be wearing your mask. No, I'm not. Well, why not? Because, well, all my life matters. Oh, so we're going to pull the Black Lives Matter stuff? Yeah. If you're part of the Black Lives Matter movement and you want to end systemic racism, don't come to me. I'm not the one who's going to end systemic racism because I'm not racist. Now, having said that, I'm like, okay, you can go around other black people and be comfortable, right? Well, yeah, of course, they're my people. Okay, what if you have no people? I don't hang around deaf people because the rest of the deaf community is largely all deaf. Like, they cannot hear at all. I can hear enough to survive off of most of the time. Not all the time, but some of it. Like when I'm doing tattoo work and I'm listening for the gun to make weird noises, I have to bring it over here because this is the money hand, but this is the money ear. I can hear variations with my right ear. And yeah, for when one of them is like, well, you don't know what it's like to be black, you don't know what it's like to be deaf. Imagine having, like when I put on headphones, they're a full blast. Like literally, it doesn't matter what kind of music I'm listening to, it's at full volume the entire time. My wife knows this, my kids know this. And they're like, sometimes my kids complain about me having music up too loud. And my earphones, I have to have it that loud just to hear. But anyway, I think that Black Lives Matter should step back from their own hubris and examine themselves for what they are. Because they don't know, if they don't know that they're turning into an anti-Semite movement, they don't deserve to be operating. They don't deserve to be a social justice reform group. Anyway, that's just my opinion after looking it up for several hours and doing some research and digging deep. I personally would have a problem with being backed by a guy who killed one of the biggest black leaders in the civil rights movement, Malcolm X. Because if he thinks he can get away, if he knows he can get away with murdering a civil rights leader like Malcolm X, who was Islamic too, who's to say he won't kill any of his other followers or anybody else? I have no doubt he'll either do it or convince somebody else to do it for him. But anyway, hopefully one of you guys will give me a shout back and throw back a subject you want me to cover. I still have a paper with the subjects I have to record on, but I felt it appropriate to ask what you, the audience, wanted to hear about. This is what Laura wanted to hear about. She got her wish. Alibaba. No. As always, thank you. Like, share, subscribe. I mean, if I don't get very many subscribers, I'm still okay with it because I'm still going to blister your ears and your brain with everything I've got to say from everything from my lens of view. Y'all peace out because I got to get this shit shrink. Peace.